Most people never reach that elite level of closing for one specific reason. They treat sales like it is just a bag of tactics instead of a true skill set. They chase after scripts or little fragments of what they have seen people doing on social media. They are just memorizing lines and looking for quick fixes. And they try to take shortcuts around the parts that actually matter, the emotional intelligence, the biopsychology, and the questions that actually move the needle. These things allow you to have depth. It gives you a real understanding of what it truly means to shift someone's decision. This course is the exact opposite of that because everything I'm going to teach you here is what I call anti-sales. What you're about to go through is not a collection of tricks and tactics. It is the complete skill set that I have developed over the past decade. It is all structured in the exact order that you need to become a world-class closer. Not a script reader, not a performer, but someone who can actually guide a decision. You will guide a difficult decision with confidence and clarity. I can assure you, you won't need to watch any more sales videos after watching this course. This will allow you to reach a level that most people never even scratch the surface of. The insights I am showing you here are essentially compressing my years of experience into a tiny video. And in turn, that will allow you to compress potentially years of wasted time into months of action and focused skills. That could be the difference between staying trapped, earning the same amount of money year after year, or it could be building the kind of freedom that allows you to work less and earn more. So please take it seriously, take notes, and go deep. This is the start of you becoming the kind of closer that people will love to buy from. Let's begin. I remember sitting with a closer who approached me for a one-on-one session. He was stuck at around the $4,000 or $5,000 a month mark. He was wanting to move into remote high-ticket sales and hit those $10,000 to $20,000 months. So I asked him a pretty straightforward question, and I said, the prospects that you deal with now, what is their most common pain? And he said, it is that they want to earn more money. Which I was like, yeah, but what is actually behind that? And he didn't know. He went quiet. That is when I realized that most closers and most salespeople do not learn this. The pattern is always the same. Average closers and average salespeople collect surface level problems and surface level desires. Elite closers facilitate real change and have impactful conversations. I am going to give you an overview of the exact checklist or toolkit or weapons or resources that I believe you need. These are what you need to include to have an impactful discovery. Some of these bleed into each other a little bit, but this is sort of my mental framework that allows me to hold a frame during a call. And I know that if I hit every single one of these marks, there is no chance that person isn't buying. The top closers in the world do not just listen to the first response, they try to figure out what the prospect isn't saying. What is behind that first statement? They look for the regret or the identity behind that statement. And that is what this video is all about. It is not about interrogating a prospect and just reeling off a big long list of questions. It is about learning to actually take someone from a surface level problem to that emotional clarity. You want them to have the belief that they need to make a change. And your solution, which is the pitch that comes next, is the most obvious solution to fix what they are going through. It is there to help get them to where they want to go. Once you can understand this, everything changes. Your close rate, how much you enjoy sales calls, how prospects respond to you, literally everything. So what I have noticed with closers that are stuck between $3,000, $4,000, even all the way up to $10,000 a month, most of the time they are completely stuck at the surface level. They ask good questions. They have a good script that they follow. Their initial question is usually right on the money, but they accept that surface level response. Now, what do I mean by a surface level response? That could be, I just want to make more money. It could be, I need more customers for my business. It could be, I want to leave Spain. It could be, I want to change my job. Or it could be, I want to develop a new skill. They take that surface level response as the real driving force behind the reason why they are on the call. And it almost never is. There is always more emotion behind that initial statement. And ultimately, once we pull that out of the prospect, that impact and that emotion is what is going to actually drive the decision. The consequence of that is that the pitch from there falls completely flat. There is no emotional depth and you do not actually fully understand why the prospect is on the call. When I have been reviewing closers' calls, 80% of the time, the main problem is that they just do not go deep enough. They are way too surface level. And a lot of salespeople out there, specifically lower level salespeople, have a discovery process that is way more data driven. For instance, let's say you work for a marketing company. You might just be asking about what return on ad spend they get or how long they have been using XYZ agency for. Or you might ask how much they are spending on ads. It is just a data driven discovery. Ultimately, you could collect all that information on a form before the call. The closing call could just be deep rooted in emotion and actually facilitating that change. If you just use data on a discovery process, you will get a response like, I just want to improve my return on ad spend. But if your discovery process is emotional, you will get a response like, I am exhausted and I do not know what to do next. You might hear, I am worried about my business. One of those is going to move the needle much harder than the other. And I bet you can guess which one it is. A good stress test for this is when a prospect gives you a response, think to yourself, is this what is keeping them awake at 2 or 3 a.m.? Is this what is running through their head when they are lying awake at night? Or is it something a little bit deeper than this? Surface problems or surface desires are often just the tip of the iceberg. It is what is beneath that keeps people up at night. And that is what plays on someone's mind. A contrasting example of this would be surface level, like, I just want to make more money. A deep dive into that pain point will uncover that earning more money allows him to be the sort of provider that he has always wanted to be. It allows him to be the sort of man that he has always wanted to be and be able to provide the sort of life he wants for his family and his children. It also means having the time freedom to actually spend it with them. So what most closers do is they have these surface level responses. Then they dive straight into the pitch or start telling them about the pitch halfway through the discovery process. It just breaks up the entire call and causes huge sales resistance. It does not facilitate any sort of impactful change whilst you are on the call. Usually you will get a response like, I need to go and think about it, or I am going to call a few other people and see what they can offer me. You won't know how to handle it because you do not really have any substance whatsoever. So what I'm going to give you in this video is a checklist. This can be used as a guide. By no means is this everything you possibly need to conduct a perfect discovery, but it gives you an amazing introduction. It gives you all the tools so you can pretty much take it away and implement it straight away. I promise you it is going to change a lot. The way you need to view this checklist is almost like a reminder sheet. You need to do a deep dive and understand how to actually articulate these sort of questions. You need to learn how to foster these emotional states in the prospect. But once you know that, this can act as your general framework. When you are on a call, you can take a glance at it. You can think, have I touched on this? Have I touched on that? You can ask yourself, have I created enough impact in this area? So without further ado, let's dive into it and look at the first aspect. The first element is current situation. What this really means is the facts behind the situation. Quite simply, just the facts. That is all we are looking for right now because we cannot sell to people if we do not know the facts around the current situation. This completely depends on your offer. All you need to do to understand the current situation is ask yourself what facts you need. What do you need to know as a closer to have a full picture of this individual? Not the pains, not the desires, just the facts. So often that can be what they do for work or how long have they done it for. Maybe you need to know, are they married? Or if you are selling B2B, there might be some facts that you need around the business. But ultimately, these are the mundane details. Do they commute to work? How many hours do they work? Energy levels, that sort of thing. These are just the facts because without the facts, you cannot sell anything. If you do not get a clear enough picture of someone's current situation, sometimes you can trip up. You can make assumptions because it is very easy to just categorize all your prospects into the same identity. So you need to gather the facts to begin with. The second element is going to be your anchor through the entire call. Now, this is where people start to trip up. This is where people start to accept surface level answers. What we are looking for here is a very clear desired state and a desired outcome. What do they actually want to achieve by using your service or by learning the skill that you teach? Maybe it is the fitness program that you offer. Maybe it is the business solution or the training, whatever. What do they ultimately want to achieve? What is the outcome that they are looking for? But the answer to that question is always going to be surface level. How do we push deeper from that? And that is using things like the staircase method. This is where we break down and dig deep into that desired state and outcome. So let's say if someone says, I want to make more money. Why is making more money so important to you right now? How much money? Why that number? How would that change things for you? Who else does this affect? How would it affect them? When you have actually achieved all that, how does that actually change things for you? Imagine you are earning that sort of money and you are providing that sort of life. I guess personally, it is these sorts of questions. These structured probing questions will give you the real impact behind that desired state and outcome. This is what acts as our anchor throughout the entire call, because every other question feeds into what they actually want out of their life. And we can also connect this desired state and this desired outcome to their identity. This is their aspirational identity. So asking questions like, when you are living that life, who do you become? Or ask, who do we unlock? Or what is different about how you see yourself? This is going to plant some seeds for the identity-based closing and challenging later in the call. And the key here with desired state is a question that you have to ask. How long have you wanted that for? Understanding how long they have wanted that desired state is going to give us so much ammunition. It helps us deal with the limitations later in the call. And then there is element 3. Have we created enough pain during the discovery process around the prospect's current situation? Because without any current pain in their current situation, the chances of them making a decision are minimized. They need to move away from where they are. Now again, most closers trip up here and they accept surface level responses. They hear, I need to make more money, or I do not earn enough money. Rather than digging deeper into that, you need to ask why. Why do you not earn enough money? What do you mean by not enough? Who else is this affecting? What are you unable to do with the amount of money that you are earning right now? And how long has this been going on for? This is again layered probing questions, which is building our case. There are a lot of signs once you hit real pain. When people are just starting out as closers, they struggle with this a little bit. They struggle because they never push it far enough. You will know when you push it too far. And honestly, it is better to push it too far than not push it at all. A lot of closers trip up here because they do not know when they have actually found real pain. Now, most closers and salespeople, when they are just starting out, do not push far enough. I would prefer you to push too far rather than not far enough. You will realize when you have hit real pain through body language and through the tonality of the prospect. Maybe they look away, maybe they look down, or maybe they take a long pause before answering with a sigh. You will feel the weight of it. It is at that point that you should feel comfortable to move on. It all comes down to emotion and impact. Now, there is the fourth element. There are 2 types here, but they feed into each other. For high ego prospects, people who feel like life is pretty good or they can do things on their own. Have you installed enough doubt in their mind? Have you planted a seed of doubt? It is productive doubt. Asking questions like, you seem like a really sharp guy. What has stopped you from solving this already? Or if you were able to figure this out on your own, wouldn't you have already sorted it out by now? Now, on the other side of this, there are some prospects who might be in a low belief state. They might not really believe in themselves, and we want to foster that belief for them. We want to encourage them. So we need to show them through the sales process that they are more capable than they think. So show them that they have made hard decisions in the past. Ask how that panned out. Are they in a place now where they feel like they can trust themselves? Can they be empowered to make a decision? The reason why this matters is that overconfident prospects need to see that there is a gap, but underconfident prospects need to see their capability. If you do not do this, both are going to crop up as objections later in the call. They will be much harder to deal with. Essentially, through this process, both need to realize that they need help. They need to realize they are ready to receive it and that they are ready to take action. Now, on to the 5th element. This is potentially one of the most important elements of the call, and that is limitations. These are behavioral limitations that prospects have placed on themselves. These are often future objections in disguise. This is where we start to uncover why the prospect isn't at the place that they actually want to be. Why aren't they at that strong desired state or that strong desired outcome? Why aren't they there already? What stopped them? Have they had help in the past already? Why did the help that they had in the past not work out? Or if they did not have help in the past, why have they not sought help? Now look at all of the reasons behind why previous programs did not work. Look at the reasons that they did not get help, or the reasons that they have not achieved what they want out of life yet. These are often going to be external excuses to begin with. We need to take them away from being an external excuse. Things like, I didn't have time, I didn't have the knowledge, or I didn't have the money. These are all excuses. We need to move them to internal limitations. We need to get them to admit that it is fear. Maybe they have been too comfortable. Maybe they have been procrastinating and putting things off and kidding themselves. We need to pull that limitation out and help them to overcome it here and now. We do that by showing them the next point. This is the cost of inaction. So what happens if they continue to hold on to this limitation? What if they hold on to this fear of failure and this inability to move forward? What if they keep holding on to that? What if they do not actually make a change? What happens then? We need there to be some future pain here. Future pain is a massive needle mover. This is where we are ultimately holding up that mirror. We are showing the prospect that they have gotten their way up until now. Their behaviors, their actions, their decisions, and their mindset are the reasons why they aren't where they want to be. And if they continue holding on to it, what is that future going to look like? Paint a picture, because there is only one thing people run away from more than current pain. It is the avoidance of future pain. And through this cost of inaction, we are showing these limitations and how they have affected their life. We are attempting to show them the cost of staying where they are. The cost of their future situation is far greater than the cost of our service. Now, the other aspect of the call is about identity. Have we used identity throughout the call to make that shift? Because often people fall back to the habits and the beliefs of the identity that they build themselves around. But often for people to make a big change and a big decision, they need to step into a new identity. We do that through our language and through our questionnaire. People basically buy services based on who they want to become. So a great way to do this is to separate the past self of the prospect. This is the version of them that hasn't got what they want up until now. It is the behaviors and actions of that version of them versus the aspirational identity. This is the version of them that they foresee themselves being in future. This is the version of them that has the level of success that they are looking for. We are looking at the bridge between those two versions of the prospect. What is that gap that they need to cross in order to actually become that person? And once we separate that identity, we can dig into it further. We can say, the version of you that is already at $20,000 a month, what beliefs does he have? What sort of actions does he take? And when we look at the version of you that you want to become, is he the sort of person that lets fear get in his way? Does he let fear control him and control his decisions and make him hesitant? We do this for a reason. If the prospect can see themselves as someone who takes action and someone who does not hesitate, they will step into that identity. Ultimately, that will move them forward to a decision. The eighth element is urgency. Now, a lot of closers trip up here. They believe urgency comes from fake deadlines and telling the prospect they have only got a certain amount of spaces. That is not true. Real urgency is backed by emotion. There is internal urgency. This is when they feel as though they need to change for themselves on the inside. So asking questions like, how long have you wanted this for? What is any different that you would actually step outside your comfort zone and make a change now? Or was there something that happened recently that allowed you to make that shift? Did you realize you had to make the change now rather than keep delaying things? Or there is external urgency. We get this through probing. Maybe they have got a baby on the way. Maybe they have got a sick parent they need to take care of. Maybe they are encroaching on a certain birthday that they thought they would be at a different place in life. We need to be uncovering the urgency, because if not, then it makes it a lot easier for a prospect to just say, I will go away and think about it. And the ninth element of a successful discovery call is ownership. Has the prospect ultimately owned their situation, or are they still blaming external circumstances? And most importantly, are they owning the fact that they are in control? They need to realize they control getting to that desired outcome or state. You can ask a question as simple as, who controls whether this changes or whether you stay where you are? Getting them to say, I do, means they cannot blame external circumstances anymore. And the 10th element is a pretty simple one here. Have we uncovered if there is a support structure in place? What do I mean by a support structure? This could be a partner or it could be a parent. But ultimately, is there another influence in this decision? Are they supportive of it, or how do we get them to be supportive? Through this, we are looking to prevent objections. We want to stop as many partner objections later in the call as humanly possible. And element 11 is the final one. This is not really a question, but more of a feeling. Have you created a perception shift through the call? A successful sales call means actually being that facilitator of change. Do they see the situation differently than when they started the call? Do they view the problem differently? Do they have a new level of ownership around the problem? Do they have a new realization that they do need to make a change? Maybe they realize they have been in the way up until now. Have you moved them from just being problem aware to consequence aware? That perception shift is what is going to allow them to feel like they actually need to change now. And now on to some bonuses and things that you need to include. These are like the glue that holds these frameworks together. It enables you to have a successful conversation. The first bonus is reactive questioning and looping. This is why most scripts fail. What scripts usually do is just stack long questions. It is like long question, long question, long question. Reactive questioning is different. If a prospect says, I need more leads, you respond with, why do you feel like you need more leads? It is much more reactive. And this is not something you can script because you are reacting to the language that the prospect uses. If you are just using a script, that is more like an interview. It is more like a box-ticking exercise, not a conversation. You can only have a real conversation if you are listening to what a prospect says. You need to dig into the words that they use and the statements that they make. That is impossible to script, and that is how to have a really valuable conversation. And then it comes down to looping. A prospect might say something like, I am exhausted, and an elite closer will just go, exhausted? And the prospect will say, yeah, I am absolutely drained. I literally get no sleep. I am working all the time. I have even got my laptop open when my partner is asleep next to me. I literally feel like I am running on empty all the time and I cannot even really communicate with people. You have just got all of that depth from just repeating back a word. You just used a certain body language and tone. By doing this, we are actively listening. We are being genuinely curious about the language that the prospect is using. That enables us to formulate the most reactive question that we can find. We do not need to use long words for this. We do not need to formulate a perfect question. That is not how impactful conversations work. Often we are just listening and reacting to what the prospects say. But we know we have got this internal checklist in our mind. We might have it up on a screen next to where the call is as a guide. Ultimately, we are having a real conversation. But in the back of our mind, there is a structure to it. That is how elite closers perform. Now, a big thing here is, when do you actually know when you have finished a discovery process? At what point do you start annoying the prospect by asking too many questions? How do you know when it is actually done? I do not have a real answer for you here because it is different depending on the conversation that you have. But the biggest thing I can give you is that the energy will shift. It will shift from the prospect just being interested to wanting a change. It will take them from a surface level problem to asking about a real solution. They are bought in on you and they are waiting for you to present the solution. They really want it and they are ready for this change. More than anything, it is a feeling. And you get that by not relying on a screen. You get it by actually interacting with the person across from you. You realize that this person actually wants a change. The best move here is to show them this solution. That is ultimately what is going to guide them to taking action and making a change. Now, the bigger picture here is the overall meta lesson of a good discovery. A good discovery process is not about you. It is not about the smartest questions that you can formulate on ChatGPT. It is not about controlling the call. The discovery is mainly about you being that leader. You are that facilitator of change. You are holding up that honest mirror for the prospect to look themselves in the eye. They need to see what has been holding them back. They need to see what happens further down the line if they do not make a change. That is your job. It is helping the prospect see what they have been avoiding. You are guiding them to the change that they actually want in their life. It leads to the result and the desired outcome that they have been wanting for a long time. You can keep this open when you are on a sales call. It is going to be a constant reminder. Listen to your calls back. Ask yourself, did I hit all of those notes there, or was there still room for improvements? We can also look for clues in the objections. What objections came up? What holes in my discovery caused that objection? Because closers who actually master discovery do not just make more money. They help way more people get to where they want to go. That is the difference between pushing someone over the line and guiding them over the line. But that is also the difference between 5,000 a month and 50,000 a month. It is the difference between helping 5 people achieve something and helping 50 people achieve something. You have absolute clarity and certainty. You are that trusted advisor who is detached from the sale. In some cases, you are actually changing people's lives. This checklist changed my entire approach to calls. Your prospects are lying to you, not maliciously, but they are giving you surface level objections and problems while the real pain stays buried. The reason you cannot actually get to the truth is not your questions. It is not your script, it is your tonality. So, over the next 15 minutes or so, I will show you how to use tonality in the right way. You can pull out the real pain, the real problems, and the real objections. It is about finding what is behind what the prospect has been telling you up until now. Here is what I have learned in high-ticket sales. It is not about what you say, it is how you say it. Look, most salespeople think it is all about crafting the perfect question or the perfect response. They might say, "Oh, what is your biggest challenge?" Or they ask, "What stops you from hitting your current goals?" They might ask, "What is the most important thing for you right now?" These are rigid sorts of questions, but here is the very big problem. If you ask even the most perfect question in the world with the wrong tone, you will get garbage answers every single time. You will get responses like, "I do not know." Or they might just say, "Oh, I just want to earn more money." They might say, "We are actually doing okay. We are just seeing what is out there." Or, "We are just looking for more information." Do any of these responses sound familiar to you? That is because the prospects feel that you are just another salesperson running through a script. Or even worse, they think you do not actually care about the problems. They think you are just looking to get a sale out of them. As soon as a prospect feels that, their brain will just put up a wall. But if you actually master tonality, you will not believe some of the responses that you will get from people. They will open up and tell you things that they have never even told another human being before. Never mind another salesperson. There was quite literally a study in the 1960s by a guy called Albert Mehrabian. I think that is how you pronounce his name, though I could be butchering it. It was based around communication. They found that 93% of communication is nonverbal. That means only 7% of what you say, literally the words, actually matters. The rest has nothing to do with it. It is all to do with tonality and body language. Obviously, if we are selling over Zoom, body language might not come in as much as it would in real life. That is why we make sure our appearance, our camera setting, and our microphone are all on point. That is like the digital version of body language. But that means you are relying on your tonality even more. Most salespeople are basically fighting with their arm tied behind their back. They are ignoring the 70, 80, or even 90% of what really matters when it comes to closing someone. That is your tonality. So let me break down for you the top 4 tonalities that I train all my top closers in. These separate them from every other salesperson out there. Tonality 1 is concerned. This is when you want them to see the consequences of not changing. Instead of saying, "What happens if you don't change this?" Try something like this. Have you given it any thought as to what happens if you don't make a change? Did you hear that shift? This is not me being pushy. This is me being like a doctor who is genuinely concerned about your health if you do nothing. When a prospect hears that tone, they will feel like you genuinely care about their problems. Not because you want to make a sale, but because you know where they are heading. Okay, time to look at tonality number 2. Now, this is for the discovery section of the call. This is when you want to gain information from a prospect and you want them to open up. But you do not want them to feel like they are being interrogated. So instead of saying, "How long have you been doing that for?" you could say, "Okay, how long have you been doing it that way for?" The second example invites them to share more. The first feels like you are building a case against them. Curiosity creates safety, and safety is what will get you the truth. So the third one we are going to look at is certainty. This is for transitions or for the pitch section of the call. You might say, "Based on everything you have told me, I know we can help you. Would you like me to explain how we can help?" Or you might ask, "Where do you want to go from here?" And that is not arrogance. That is certainty. And certainty is what people are actually buying. They do not want someone who is just pretty sure they can help. They want someone who is certain they can fix the problems for them. Now, the fourth is the biggest and potentially also the most challenging. And it literally is challenging. Now we use the challenging tone when we want someone to see what their patterns are. We want to challenge them supportively to break them. Let's say we have got a tricky prospect during the objection handling stage of the call. They say, "I always make decisions this way." This is when we would bring this tone into action. And we might want to say, "Okay, well, if you have always made decisions that way, but you aren't where you want to be right now, Okay, let's use an example. Let's say we are in the objection handling part of the call. A prospect has said to us, I always make decisions this way. I just want time to think about it. This is when we might enact this challenging tone. We might say, okay, well, if you have always made decisions this way, but you aren't where you want to be, would it be fair to say you might need to change how you approach your decision-making process to get to where you need to go? We are not attacking them when it comes to challenging. We are just holding up a mirror to try and help them see where they are going wrong. We want to help them get to where they want to go. Most prospects have never actually had someone challenge them from a place of their best interest. When you do that, and when you do it right, often that is the wake-up call that they have been waiting for. So these are the 4 tonalities. We have just invented the 4 C's while we are here on this video. Concerned, curious, certain, and challenging. Now let me show you the technique that gets prospects to tell you something that they have never told another salesperson. They have never said this in their entire life. This is for when you have tried everything. You might have hit every single note on the sales call up until now, but they come to the price and you still get slapped around the face with, I need to think about it. Here's what most salespeople do wrong. They say, come on, John, we have been on the phone for an hour now. What do you really need to think about? Guess what? That is just going to trigger the defenses even more. Instead, try something like this. John, can I ask you something? This is just between you and me. It is off the record. What is really behind you putting more time and distance between where you are right now and getting the life that you actually want? Do you feel that shift? So let me break down here basically what has happened. The first thing we are going to do is ask for permission. We ask for permission, so we are not just bulldozing them with our opinion or a question. They are basically inviting us to offer a suggestion. Second, we said something like between you and me. This is just going to create a bit of intimacy between you and the prospect. It is sort of like that friend approach, like you are putting your arm around their shoulder. You are just trying to help them person to person. Thirdly is that pause before the final question. This is called verbal pacing, and it is going to create some tension. And fourth, we use the phrase, what is really behind, not what is there left to think about. We ask, what is really behind it? That ultimately implies that there is something deeper than the surface level. It invites them to tell you. And here is the magic. Deliver this with real concern using a tone that shows you actually care about solving the problem. I promise you, it is almost impossible for them to not open up. And now, let me show you how to use tonality to dig deeper into a prospect's pain. Because ultimately, prospects do not buy solutions to problems. They buy relief from pain. And most of their pain is emotional, it is not logical. People make decisions based on emotion and they justify it with logic. So let's say you are on a sales call and a prospect says to you, we have been struggling to hit our revenue targets. This is what most salespeople would say. Okay, what has been your biggest challenge to hit them so far? That is basically just a logical discovery. It is boring and it does not move anyone. Instead, maybe try something like this. That must be really stressful for you. How long has this been going on for? And what does that mean for your team? And I guess, what has this been like for you over the past few months? Do you see what I am doing there? I am not just finding out what the problem is. I am finding out what the emotional impact behind that problem actually carries to the prospect. Because when someone finds the real cost, the emotional cost behind a problem, that is when they will stop shopping around and they will actually start buying. To round things off, let me give you 3 advanced patterns that I teach all my top closers. Okay, let's look at pattern 1, the empathy bridge. So when a prospect shares something emotional with you, let's say they say, well, I am just tired of being let down by agencies. We do not want to dive in straight away and try and solve it. You do not want to say, well, this is why we are different, blah, blah, blah. The right response is to sit with it and pause. You say, that must be tough. How many times has this happened so far? This empathy bridge allows the prospect to feel heard before you just try to fix them. It happens before you just try to pitch. Okay, let's look at number 2, the assumption challenge. So often prospects can say really limiting statements that we know are not true. A prospect might say something like, I have literally tried everything. Instead of jumping to it and saying, I doubt your heart, otherwise you would be exactly where you need to go. That is wrong. That is the wrong sort of challenge. We might want to challenge in a friendly way and say, everything? Really? Tell me everything you have tried so far. This is going to invite them to prove the point, and it is also going to prove that they haven't tried anything in a way that is not going to cause conflict. Now, this is a slightly different one. Number 3 is the future pace anchor. This is when you want them to slow down and really feel the impact of what you are saying. So let's say we are painting what the solution actually looks like to the prospect. We might say, imagine, John, in 6 months' time, you have finally fixed this problem. You're back up to earning $20,000 a month. You can take your family away on that holiday that you have been planning. I guess, how would that change things for you? What is different day to day? Who else would this change things for? This slower pace allows them to actually visualize the outcome. And once they can actually visualize it and see it and feel it, that is when they will buy it. Now, before we wrap things up, let me show you the 3 biggest mistakes that closers make. These are mistakes sales reps use that are ultimately killing their deals. So the first mistake is matching a prospect's energy when they are negative. If they are frustrated, stressed, or angry, you are just going to become part of the problem. Instead, stay calm and grounded. It is going to be your energy and your tonality that brings them back to center. Mistake number 2 is using the same tonality for every question. I hear salespeople who sound excited about absolutely everything, or they sound curious about everything, concerned about everything, or challenge prospects on everything. Your tone should match the purpose of your question. Discovery is curious, pain exploration, and sometimes objections are going to be concerned, and your pitch and closing are confident and certain. Now, I have saved the best for last. The third and final mistake, and it is the worst, is when people fake tonalities. Now, what do I mean by this? People can smell an inauthentic tone a mile away. If you do not actually genuinely care and you're just putting on some crazy pretend tonality, the prospect is going to be able to tell. The best way to deliver any of these tonalities is to actually embody that feeling. If someone has a problem and it is very obvious, be concerned for them, care about them, be genuinely curious about someone's current situation and how long they have been doing something. Just being curious will serve you so well as a sales rep. And when it is very obvious that someone is just in their own way, they are just delaying things. You can be challenging in that friendly way because you are trying to help them win. And when a prospect feels that, that will make the biggest difference. The best tonality ultimately just comes from actually giving a damn. Look, here's the bottom line. You could have the best scripts in the world. You could have the best questions. You could have the best pitch and the best objection handling word tracks. But if you do not have the tonality to match, none of it matters. If it does not create trust, safety, and emotional connection, it is pointless. Prospects do not buy your solution. They buy how that solution makes them feel. If you master tonality, you will stop getting surface level responses. You will get the real truth and the real pain behind why they are on the call to begin with. And ultimately, that is what closes deals. That is when you can turn 3K months into 20K months. And sales can start becoming a career, not just a job. If you want to actually master high-ticket sales and gain a remote position, listen up. You want a job that gives you complete freedom of time, location, and finances. Just book a call with me using the link in the description or drop me a DM on Instagram and we can have a chat.